Good job, Ann.
As HR professionals, we are responsible for managing the employee's life cycle from onboarding to offboarding. But while we are so busy supporting employees, how can we support ourselves? When our careers plateau, how can we boost our marketability and stay relevant? The answer? HR Certified. Whether you are new in your HR career or an experienced vet, HR Certified is here to support your HR career goals by helping you navigate the certification process. Why certify? Passing the certification exam gives you instant credibility, respect in the workplace, as you immediately apply new skills, making you better at what you do. Upward mobility, by enhancing your earnings potential and career autonomy. We offer on-demand and fast-track certification test preparation courses. At HR Certified, we fully embrace our role in bridging the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Join over the 500 graduates before you. Take the next step in your career. Get HR Certified. To learn more, please visit www.gethrcertified.com.
Welcome, everyone. It's really interesting, and I think you can all agree is that we're not IT people, but we just know how to deal with the hand that we're dealt, right? And that's the way it goes. Thank you all for your patience as we were kind of just navigating some technical difficulties, but we are here. Sandy said it. She said, "We're gonna make it. Breathe."
We're fine. We are HR. We can do anything. What does your shirt say, Anthony?
That's right. This says nothing surprises me. Well,
That's right.
But I'm still dying on the inside, right?
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out your busy day to join us. That commercial was a shameless plug, but at the same time serves as the baseline of what we're going to talk about today. My name is Anthony P. Howard. I'm the founder and CEO of HR Certified. And our whole entire mission is to enable HR professionals and their teams in this awesome field of HR, and to solve the quintessential question that companies are looking to solve: finding the right people to do the right things at the right time in the right way. I am here with the Sandra M. Now I just found out her name is Sandy. I saw that in the thing that she likes to be called that. But when I tell you that these books have been a part of my life since starting my HR certification journey way back when. In fact, it was this book that was the beginning for me. Was this handbook? So if as I'm going to turn it over for Sandy to formally introduce herself, if everybody that's listening to this right now can put in your location and then also give us the question that you came in here with front of mind, and we may have some giveaways for you if you do that. Sandra, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone?
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you for having me. And as Anthony said, my name is Sandy Reed. I go by Sandra. I go by lots of different things. And I've had the privilege of authoring exam prep study guides for HR certification exams. A lot of the questions that we're anticipating are SHRM or HRCI, and I've done study guides for both. So I have some, I don't have inside information, but I have at least some perspective on what you can expect when you take the exams. Quick little bit about me. I've been practicing HR for more than 20 years, and certification changed my life. It changed my professional career. And so I'm very passionate about it. Having said that, it might not be for everybody. Anthony and I talked about that. We're not biased. So we welcome your questions. We welcome disagreements. We're just really excited to have this conversation together and hear what y'all are really looking to understand from it and take away from it.
Yeah, that serves as a perfect baseline for our discussion today. We are here to have an unfiltered conversation about this landscape of HR certification. And it kind of leads to my story. When I entered this, the landscape was simpler. It just had HRCI, PHR, SPHR. That was it. And now it has not only has the HR certification landscape evolved, but so has the number of options, its eligibility, its requirements. All the things have really, really shifted, and that has created a lot of questions and confusion for those that are pursuing this. And so what we're hoping is to have an unfiltered conversation, as Sandy had said, unbiased, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because in the end, what we want you to have and to take away from this is the information you need to, one, decide if HR certification is for you, two, if it is, which one to pursue, and the third, how to maximize your investment into the process, because it's not cheap. Okay.
Nicely said. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our goal for today. And again, it looks like a lot of comments are coming through.
We've got a lot from South Carolina and my new home state in Georgia. We got New York, Delaware, SoCal. Thank you very much. I was born in LA.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all over.
Yeah, there's people asking what level of certification that they should have. I think also another thing is, study methods, in person, self-study, virtual, all the things, they are blowing up. Georgia. So this is also what I want you to do, knowing that this is how good this conversation is going to be. I need you to share on LinkedIn right now that you're here, so that just in case they may have not received this, that they know that we're having this conversation, because this is the reality. More than likely, if you look at a HR role, an opportunity that is open, it is going to have HR certification preferred on it, regardless of level. That's where we're at. And this is the most competitive environment I have ever encountered. I'm sure that, Sandy, you probably say the same thing, and you don't want to give a reason for them to say no, right? So that's it as it relates to that. Oh, they're asking a lot of questions that we're going to kind of go over. So I guess my next thing here is, in order to figure out where we're going, I think it'll be good for us to kind of talk about how we got here. So I had indicated that HRCI was there, then SHRM came. It's HRCI versus SHRM. Sandy, I was going to ask you if you could kind of give us a executive summary on how this landscape had evolved and the relationship between the two, and how it got to where we are now.
Yeah, all of the above. And I'll try very hard to not nerd out, but I get super nerdy about these things. So again, keep me on track, Anthony. But so I was sharing this with Anthony earlier too. Similar to labor laws, a lot of time an act creates the administration, because the administration has to enforce the act. So it's got kind of this circular cadence to it. And it was very similar with HRCI and SHRM. In order for human resources to be considered a profession, there are certain elements that have to exist, including a written body of knowledge. There has to be that body of knowledge that is taught from, like, at a university level. There needs to be a certification associated with it. And so SHRM created HRCI as the certification arm, more than 40 years ago. That's how certification
How many years ago?
Born. I want to say it was more than 40 years ago, but SHRM used to be the Association for Personnel. I mean, again, it's been around HR has been around for a long time, but certification, not so much. But you made a really important point, Anthony. What certification was when it started out is no longer what it is now. And I think that is good, because business isn't the same as it was, 40 years ago either. But it's also led to some confusion, not only about certification, but about the value of human resources in general. So that's kind of the high level view of why certification exists in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And it really elevated. We evolved from administration, right? From what was personnel,
party planners,
right? Yeah. And it had the business task of us something differently. And every profession has if it's a profession, you have a designation.
That's
right?
What makes us. That's why we're not so there's two things, right? There's a burden of it. Yes, anybody can do HR, and the downside is anybody can do HR. So how do we distinguish between the headlines that say why we hate HR? Because we've all worked with a bad HR professional. And I don't mean that from a poor character perspective, although that certainly can exist. But we've all seen HR done wrong, very wrong. But when it's practiced right, and when it comes from a place of coherency, which is what certification does to a certain extent, is it gives us a common language. It gives us a framework. We talked about this earlier, Anthony. HR is not everything. Mm-hmm. But there is an absolute framework of practice. And because it can be done so differently from industry to industry, doesn't mean that it should be done differently from industry to industry. That's how we maintain our credibility as a profession, not just individuals who, well, I fell into HR because, I started out as a receptionist, which, by the way, I did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But there's a growth there that has to happen.
A misnomer about HR a lot, especially for aspiring HR professionals, is that you have to be born HR. And the reality is most people are in HR from other professions.
Absolutely.
And I know I've utilized certification to master the pivot. All right, we're going to talk about this just for a moment. So you had mentioned that HRCI and SHRM were together, and now they separated.
They're not.
They are definitely,
mom and dad are divorced. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sometimes can feel contentious, more from on one side than the other. But how did it get there? Because anybody, I need 100 in the chat. If you were here, if you were in the HR realm during the HRCI SHRM split, if you was here, put 100 in the chat. Okay. But there are some people who came in afterwards that have no idea. I even had questions like, what's HRCI? So tell us about what as it relates to the split and the rationale behind it.
Yeah, so SHRM like I said, SHRM created HRCI, and they were, for all intents and purposes, they were distinct. They had to be distinct because the individuals creating the knowledge base or creating, prep materials, and SHRM had a big learning system even then before they split for the HRCI exams. So there had to be a firewall between that group and the tests in order to maintain accreditation. And I want to say it was 10 or so years ago, there was a split, like you were talking about, between SHRM and HRCI. Just let me take one step back real quick. SHRM and HRCI used to serve on each other's boards. They, when I wrote the body of knowledge that you showed at the beginning, when I wrote that back in 2018, that one, I had the opportunity to go to Alexandria, Virginia, and there's I call it HR row, because the Association for Training and Development headquarters are there, and SHRM headquarters are there, and HRCI headquarters are there, and it's on this beautiful cobblestone street. I mean, it was really quite the experience for the geek in me. They used to be in the same building. That's how close they were. And SHRM, under its new leadership, decided that the HRCI exams weren't competency-based enough, and SHRM felt that they needed to respond to the business climate, and businesses were saying we need competencies. We needed a measure of competency, and SHRM's argument was that the HRCI exams only measured knowledge. And, that led to a point where they couldn't come together to an agreement. And so SHRM then decided to go ahead and launch their own competency-based exams in direct competition with HRCI. And now they live across the street from each other on that cobblestone street, literally. They're like two buildings across from each other. So that was kind of at the heart of the split. There was a great article that was just published by HR Brew. Anthony, you and I were talking about that, and it kind of looked at the history of the SHRM exams in particular. And the big question is, well, what's the difference? And SHRM's response to that, even in the article, well, it's competency-based. Well, what's a competency? For us as practitioners, we just need to know how to do our jobs. What is it that we need to understand, that we need to know, so that we're not only more effective in our roles, but so that we can grow our professional careers as well, whether that's financially or from a skills perspective, or, titles, those types of things. And so that split was very contentious. Another feature of that was when SHRM launched, first of all, they have two separate accreditations. So HRCI and SHRM's exams, they're accredited, but they're accredited through two different groups. One actually measures the entire process for the test, and the other one just validates the test. And that's important. I won't go into the weeds on that, but that actually is a factor in choosing which exam. And the other thing is the SHRM, when they launched their test, they allowed anybody who held the PHR or the SPHR, which was the HRCI exams, they allowed them to grandfather in to the SHRM-SCP or SCP. So I held the SPHR at that time, and I had to do like a tutorial online, and then I was automatically granted the SHRM-SCP. So in my opinion, that diluted the value of the SHRM-SCP because I didn't really earn it. Yeah. Now, it was based on what I had done before, but it wasn't distinctive in that now I hold the SHRM. So I have both credentials.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's a perception out there, well, did I earn that SHRM-SCP? Fun fact, in 2022, I forgot to recertify my SHRM-SCP. So I had to recertify by exam.
Testing.
So yes, I have officially tested that exam. I will never make that mistake again. Yeah. But yeah, so again, that's kind of, there's just been a lot of, and it's unfortunate because it didn't do our industry any favors. So that was probably a long answer to a short question. So.
No, I mean, people are going to come back and replay that.
Okay.
They want to get the detail. But just to confirm out the designations, the U.S.-based designations that we're referring to in this conversation, from an HR perspective, is APHR, PHR, and SPHR. And then there is a PHRCA for specific California. And then for SHRM, we're talking about SHRM-CP and SHRM-SCP.
There's also the global and the international.
Oh, that's right. There's global. Yeah. That's HRCI, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. So the other aspects around that is that, you know, SHRM is popular. You know, that song Popular on Wicked is that they have commercial, big budgeting, marketing budget. You see them on commercials. There's a lot of visibility around it. HRCI has been very conservative in it. They have the numbers, but there's areas that people are like, what is HRCI? And it's important to know from an aspect of a testing perspective, there are equivalencies between one and the other. And we're going to talk about some testing strategies on what to really think about which one to take. And if you have the resources, you know, go ahead and do both. Let me pause for a second while we're still talking about, you know, the history of HRCI and SHRM. Any questions that you have, definitely put them into the chat. There are some questions that are asked here that we're going to definitely answer. I think, for example,
as we go along, yeah.
Yep. How you decide between HRCI and SHRM, we'll definitely lean into that about people who are wanting to pursue how to do that. So those questions are there. But if you have any questions as it relates to, you know, those differences, please put them in the chat. Our next chapter that we're really going to talk about here is outside of the roots of HRCI. And again, I'll tell you a story. I remember that year that the split happened, HRCI was disinvited from the conference, and they had to get a Hard Rock. They scrambled and went to Hard Rock Cafe across the street or down the street. It was in Las Vegas that year, I remember.
It was very poorly HR managed, quite frankly. And they even have the MOUs, you know, a lot of universities, if they want to teach to the SHRM certification exam, they have to sign an exclusivity contract. Yep. They can't also teach the HRCI.
I found that out the hard way, actually. I CI provider, and I reached out to them. I didn't hear anything. Then I heard from the back end that if HRCI cares, but for SHRM it's very exclusive as it relates to that aspect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very.
So a lot of the questions that we have here is around key differences, more around the actual certification exams themselves. And the way that I have it, and I would love for you to provide more context to it, is there are those that are just entering into HR, zero experience. Then there's early career. So you've been in it just a little bit. Then there's the professional who've had a couple years in it. mid-level, and then we have the strategic level, the people who are leading groups, leading teams. They're at the business table advising, or they're aspiring to move towards, executive. And then we have the feeders into that, right? We have people that just graduated from college. We got career pivoters who are coming from other areas. We got people who are coming from the military. We have all these different entry points. If you could kind of tell us,
I think we lost Anthony, or did we
I'm
lose me?
I'm back. No, it was
There
me.
he is.
Um,
All right.
if you could tell us the difference between the different levels
Yeah.
there, and what would be ideal for, in particular, career pivoters.
Yeah. So, and that's actually a good question to help choose which exam, HRCI or SHRM. So, as you pointed out earlier, HRCI has a suite of exams that really can meet you where you're at professionally. So, if you're entry level, brand new, or if you're a student, that's the APHR exam, or the Associate Professional in Human Resources by HRCI. And that's valuable because it doesn't have what's called a professional level experience requirement. All of the other exams require that you have some years of experience in human resources or related field in order to even qualify to sit for the exam. So if you're a student, or if you're, with no work experience, or if you're brand new to HR, really your only option is the APHR. And then if you're a transitioning military, for example, there's some pricing discounts that could, make a difference for you as well. But ultimately, whether or not you're eligible to sit for the exam is the first thing you have to consider when you're choosing HRCI or SHRM.
Let me pause for a
That's one.
second. I hope you guys
Yeah.
heard that. You work backwards. See what you qualify for first, right? Before going through this whole option of which one to choose.
Absolutely. So now with SHRM, they no longer have a student version of it, unless that's changed and I'm just not aware of it. But SHRM has just the CP and the SCP. You can test if I'm remembering this correctly. You can verify, validate, right? Trust, verify.
I have, yep.
Okay, so you can, as a student, you can take the CP or the SCP, but I don't know that you should.
That's right.
Unless you have the work experience for it, because it's the level of difficulty of these exams is notoriously high. The pass rates for both sets of the exams, not the APHR, but the PHR, the SPHR, and then the SHRM-CP and the SHRM-SCP, which are the equivalents. Those pass rates hover anywhere between 50 and 60%. So, they're not easy tests, put it that way. If you are a generalist with, say, 3 years of experience in human resources, a good fit for you would be the PHR or the SHRM-CP. That's going to be more knowledge-based. It's going to be more fundamental. It's going to have a lot of your labor laws, compliance, fundamentals of talent management, performance management, those types of things. Once you get past the 8-year mark and above, now you want to start looking at those senior level exams, which is going to be your SPHR, which is the HRCI, so many acronyms, SPHR with HRCI, the senior level exam, or the SHRM-SCP, which is the senior certified professional exam. Both of those are going to deal a lot more with business strategy and human resource as it relates to being more of a strategic business partner through the use of HR systems that will be operationally managed by a PHR or a CP candidate.
Yeah, look, say everything she just said twice, okay?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So what we're going to do is go over some individual questions that came up that's really aligned to it. If you have questions out in the audience, please go ahead and put them into the chat. So we have a question. I believe her name is Charlotte. Question is, what advice do you have for emerging professionals pursuing their certification? I graduated college a year ago and sitting for my exam in a few weeks. Congratulations, Charlotte, for your graduation.
Exciting.
From hopefully it's in HR. It doesn't have to be, but congratulations anyway. What would you say to Charlotte?
Well, I think she's already on track, right? She's got the degree. She's working on the certification. So the next thing really is to pick what part of HR you want to go into. And I think that for a lot of us who have fallen into HR, we just kind of do whatever they tell us to do. And as I shared part of my story, I started out as a receptionist at a staffing agency. That was my introduction into human resources because I didn't go to college right out of high school. So as I started to work in the HR field, I went from staffing at a receptionist at the staffing agency to starting to recruit, and found that I just really had a passion for HR. And once I got the number of years experience, that was when I sat for the PHR. And the reason I sat for the PHR is because I didn't have my degree. So I wasn't able to compete, particularly at a large corporation that required a bachelor's degree in order to even get hired. So, that was back in the 80s. So, it was a little bit different. But so for individuals who have their degree, you can really make a decision about whether or not you want to specialize. So you can either become a generalist and practice 3 or 4 functions within the employee life cycle. And that could include staffing. It could include talent management. It could be learning and development. You could become an employee relations specialist. You could become a compliance officer. There's just so many different things that you can do with a degree in HR. It just depends on 1, what you're passionate about, and 2, what you're good at. So for those of you who maybe don't have a degree like Charlotte, there's the same advice holds. It's just a matter of finding an opportunity that aligns with what you are naturally good at, and then make yourself the obvious choice. Like, get in there, do it well. And again, for me, somebody had asked earlier, how did certification change my career trajectory? I wouldn't have been able to compete with a lot of the individuals who have those degrees if I hadn't got my certification first. It took me 30 years to finish my degrees. And I don't know that I would have even gone into HR when I was 17 or 18, because we shouldn't be asking a 17-year-old to decide what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. But that's another story.
Yep.
So, right. And keep in mind now, my undergrad degree is in industrial organizational psychology. So if you love psychology, you can go that route in HR. My graduate degree is in organizational leadership. So if you love executive facilitation and leadership coaching, you can go that way with HR. There's just so many things that you can do that it's really a function of self-awareness, so that you know what you're good at and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, and I'll have to double click on what Sandy said as it relates to that. There's so many ways to show up in this awesome profession. You want to lead into your strengths,
yes,
and your passion. Those are two things that really will drive your resiliency and your ability to really be able to navigate and be successful organically.
That's right.
Understand what your strengths are and being able to translate that to the different roles that exist and that are going to be existing in this field. And similar to Sandy, currently I don't have a bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm.
I have an associate's degree. My certification allowed me to be able to pivot and also have best practices to be able to reference to add value to an organization.
And
that's
if I can add to that, Anthony, and I so appreciate that sharing that, because we all start from a different place. Most of us some of us run that traditional route, some of us don't. And one of the things that I like to say about the value of certification, so I know we want to make more money, or we want that title, or we want to grow in our career. That's for a lot of people. That's one of the pieces of the benefits of getting certified. For me, it's not so much the credential at the end of my name on LinkedIn. It's the prep process, because you learn so much in that 10 to 12 weeks. It's an immersive prep experience. Regardless of how you decide to prep, you become more knowledgeable, and you have a better understanding of best practices in HR. So yes, if you pass the test, that's obviously the goal, right? But ultimately, if we're going to be good at what we do, we have to understand what HR is and what it is not. And the prep process is what gives you that perspective, not the credential.
Yeah. And that is important, because I have seen a lot of people want to go through this process as a check in the box exercise.
Yes.
Like, for example, I need it for my job. I need to have it in order for me to keep my job. So I just need to pass. But if you really truly need to expand on your knowledge and on your approach and everything like that, then you really have to take it as more of a learning journey than one like an ACT exam or
Agreed.
an SAT, a one-time thing. Because there's no SOP for the work, for the work of HR. It's one that's dynamic. You're going to have different approaches, but at least you have a solid foundation to make the best decisions and to be able to add value to your role and to the business. I have some other, I think this kind of answers this one. This is a long one. I like this
Okay.
one, Erica. How can I better position myself to not only prepare for these exams, but to pass them successfully? I'm looking for guidance, strategies, or study methods that work, especially for someone who thrives in applied learning environments, whether than stand alone. Hold on, I got the rest of it here. Rather than standardized test formats. That was what the rest of that said. So, I would suggest that in that aspect that you don't do self-study, right? That you put yourself into a class or a part of a cohort. I know for HR Certified, we have cohort learning that will really lean into all of those things. And we'll be able to elevate that above, all those standardized things to be able to pass. Now, there are other aspects too, but based off what you were saying, Erica, it sounds like a cohort type learning style would be sufficient. But you have anything to add to that?
No,
Sandy?
I think you're right on. Yeah. And it does go back to which test. So the level of difficulty of the exams for individuals who aren't good at test taking in general, whether it's anxiety or retention, or they get confused by the answers on all of on the HRCI and the SHRM exams, there are more than one right answer. And that's, I think, what makes these tests so difficult. The SHRM exams do tend to be a little bit more difficult because of the situational judgment items, where they give a paragraph of a scenario, and then you get 3 or 4 follow-up questions to that scenario, and you have to choose the best answer, not the right answer. And the best answer is subjective. So what you said there, Anthony, which is so important about not self-studying, is if you don't have access to somebody who can help you interpret what that question is actually asking, that exam experience is going to be a lot more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, well, I can tell you as well. I mean, some additional context around these questions is that it assumes that everything is right with the world if it's not detailed.
So ideal. Yeah.
And we know in the real world that never exists, right? So you're battling 3 mindsets. You're battling your process, your company process, and best practice. And there's there could be an overlap between all 3. And you need those type of strategies to be able to decipher what is truly asking you, because you can easily bring in what I call trauma or just comfort of what you used to lean into, especially if you've been in an organization, for quite some time.
And if I can add, Anthony, the Small Business Administration, and I've written about this too, talks about more than 90% of all US-based businesses are small businesses. More than 90%. I think it's actually like 99% or something. And yet so much of the practice or the testing of HR is like Fortune 500 giant corporations. If you had unlimited resources, what would be the best way to follow? So I would even suggest, as you approach these questions, you throw out whatever your company would do, and you think about it just through the lens of an HR practice. And that goes back to why the prep matters so much, because you're kind of having to train your brain to think in a different way and almost forget what you know to be true. And a perfect example, we have some people on from California. These exams are based on federal law, for example. So not state. And so throw out what you know to be true in California. And I'm telling you, as a practice test an item writer, one of my answers is going to be correct in California, but it's going to be wrong on that particular assessment. So you almost do have to go to a different place when you're testing, and then adapt from there. It's like a backwards adaptation. You don't adapt what you know to the test. You take the test and you adapt it to, the environment where you're working or the industry where you're working.
Knowing the test is half the battle. Your mindset is the second half. And you got to be able to massage both. So true. We have military servicemen and women that's in the chat. There's been a lot of comments. on that, Sandy, what advice do you have for those that are in the military that are looking to pivot into HR, and what they should know about the certification
Yes, and
process?
thank you very much for your service. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that dedication. My new son-in-law is a Marine, so we're getting a little taste of what that life is like. So the APHR is a great choice for transitioning service members. And as a matter of fact, my co-author on the APHR study guide, which is the new book, James Galuzzo, he is an Army man. And he brought a lot of very unique perspective to that book, specifically because we were targeting, to a certain extent, that transitioning cohort or that group. And one of the biggest challenges that he shared with me is that there's a military jargon and then there's a corporate jargon. And so being able to, once again, very similar to what we talked about with Erica, is you kind of have to suspend what you know from your work environment and flip that switch to understand it just through the framework of human resources, all the way down to the language that you use. But a lot of organizations probably mirror the military to a certain extent as well, in terms of it can be political. It's a lot of interpersonal skills. It's a lot of performance management. I think that military and professionals are a very good fit for our field in a lot of ways. Again, it goes back to what they're passionate about. Hoorah, I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you, Stuart.
yeah, and then there's questions about let's get down to the cost,
yes.
right? Because this is an investment.
Oh,
I will say that up front. Right? And not everyone has the first one I would say is, if you are gainfully employed or about to be employed, professional development is a cornerstone for HR professionals in general. So get support from your employer or professional development budget. Usually you have to ask for this because it doesn't fit underneath typical tuition reimbursement. You got to plan it as part of your development plan. Like, hey, next year I would like, and you got to do that early because they plan
their budgets,
their budgets for the following year to gain certification. Right. So get your support, because actually you need their help. Your key stakeholders, your job got to know, your family got to know, your friends got to know. You got to reshift things and priorities around to make space and capacity, because you got to sacrifice something for this. It's time, finance, and all the things as it relates to this aspect. But if you're doing it on, what would you say for those that are, your method of study is also probably also tied into the resources that you have to be able to pursue it. Did you want to talk more about that, Sandra?
Well, I think that there are study options for all price points. So, and I know my self-study guides are all under, they run between like $50 and $80 very consciously, because we want it to be affordable. But as you pointed out, self-study is not for everybody. So you can go all the way up to the SHRM learning system, which is over $1,000, and it is self-study for the most part. It's online. Or you can join a cohort, and you're getting a lot of comments from individuals who have been part of your cohort who felt like it was very valuable. So, right, when you can partner and network and pivot, and I can tell you from teaching, from volunteering for some of those programs, for example, I've never worked in a union environment. So I could read about union organizing and union decertification and all the things and have that be fine. But I've benefited so much more when there was somebody in that room who worked in that environment who could actually talk to me about what that process really looked like. It becomes experiential, and these exams are absolutely experiential. So for that, I would almost recommend that you take your budget and invest it in a cohort, as opposed to, a $1,000 online study program. I think that you're going to get more value for a similar cost. Having said that, the exams all run, about the same. If you're member, non-member for sure, they're going to run about $500 with or without an application fee. I think it was Chad in the comments, and thank you for your comments, but he was talking about HRCI runs a lot of specials where you can get the application fee waived. So, you're gaining $100 there. So be strategic about when you sign up for that, get that $100, taken off. But, and somebody else pointed out here, we have to invest in ourselves if we want to grow professionally. So whatever that looks like for you, I think that certification is actually a very cost-effective way to grow in your career. The HR Brew article that we were talking about, and we'll get the link to Anthony. We can drop that in there.
Yeah, we'll drop it in the
But
chat. And I'm sorry, in the comments after.
Perfect.
After
But
this.
SHRM in that article reported a bump of about $30K a year. So if you're going to spend $1,500 to $2,000 to get certified when all is said and done, including your prep or your cohort or those kinds of things, that's a good return on investment. The pay scale survey in 2018, which the article also referenced, showed that individuals who are successfully certified accelerate their promotions in HR. And along with those accelerated promotion comes an increase in pay. So there's absolutely a correlation between certification and pay. So the comment that somebody said, we have to invest in ourselves, certification is not a cost, it is an investment. It is. So whatever that looks like for you, there are different ways that you can approach that, managing it to the budget, my point.
Yeah. I couldn't disagree with you more on that. My trajectory to get promoted increased, and it's not just the letters, right? It's how you apply it.
That's key.
I remember implementing a whole talent management program because of my exposure to it. I remember being able to not go crazy that unionization was happening around me, and I've never been involved with a union. I mean, it was just, I was able to have the confidence that if I didn't know it, I could go back and have a reference point to at least start to go deeper in whatever it is. And the other aspect too is that if you are part of a study group or a class, you got a network of people with different experiences. Every single one of you have different experiences than anybody else in the room. Use that to be able to expand your level of effectiveness and agility.
I love that. Yeah, well said.
Yep. All right, so I told you that we are not IT, but we work with the hand that we're given here. So I've been trying to get this up here. The one thing that we both agree on is that certification is not the one all be all. It's just like succession. Succession plan is not you just putting names on the thing. There are other things that go along with it in order for the plan to be effective, right? So one of the things that I want to make space for is how do you stay ahead in this competitive market? I was hoping that, Sandy, you could kick us off with, hey, these are the things to keep in mind as you're navigating this competitive market, as our roles are evolving, AI, all the things. What are you seeing in this aspect? Because I will let you know that we're more than HR certification test prep, the both of us, okay? We are HR professionals at its core.
Yeah,
that requires us to go up and above just being certified.
Yeah, it's a weird time to be in HR. It really is. I know that's probably not the technical term, but particularly if you spend as much time on LinkedIn as Anthony and I do, you see these headlines that it feels like everybody's unemployed, or really struggling just to get a job, let alone, a dream job. And like you said, making space for that and honoring that is really important. Having said all that, it's as even with business strategy, you have to be able to differentiate yourself from the other individuals who are going after the same jobs that you're going after. And so for me, it's an educational component. And I'm not talking a formal degree. I'm talking if you go to ONET online and you search an HR specialist, there are 88 different certifications that you can get related to the human resource field. It does not have to be HRCI or SHRM, even though that's what we're talking about. So the key here is to be strategic about what you want to do in HR and then be the best at that. You've just got to be good at it. And the best career advice I got when I was starting out was make yourself the obvious choice. How you do that is based on your unique skills. It's based on your mindset. It's based on what you're passionate about. It's based on a lot of different things. What's most important to you. So that goes back to that self-awareness piece too. What do you love to do? And bet on yourself. Go find that. I can't encourage you more to really just lean into what you're already naturally gifted at, and then find a way to differentiate yourself from everybody else who's trying to do the same thing. Education, work experience, volunteer, internships. There's a lot of different ways that you can make that happen. Teach a class.
Yeah. And I would tell you, I use Strength Finders to be
Yeah,
able to
love
find
Gallup. Yeah.
my gifts. And it definitely, I'm a futurist, like it detailed it all out. Know what your gifts are. And right back to your point, be self-aware. Um, and these go along the same thing as
Love
we
it,
have to
Ted.
be agile. Like if you're a recruiter, you might want to learn some other stuff, right? If you're a trainer and developer, you might want to learn some other stuff. It's going to evolve, and as it does, you want to so you don't have to get ready, right? The next is increasing intercultural competency. We are in a multicultural, multi-generational environment. Self-aware about our own biases, even though we're in the business. And so our effectiveness or our durable skills, our ability to be able to connect to people who are different than us is absolutely key, right? So honing, you can never perfect it. The only thing you could do is you can hone in on that skill. And then the last but not least, there's only one constant: change. Every organization is, and HR people are being led, HR functions are being challenged to manage it and to drive it. So all those things, this get your certification or be a part of a cohort training. If you are a leader of an HR team, you can use certification to level set. We have led cohort trainings for entire HR departments, and it has so many benefits from it. First is the team is learning together. They're able to apply it to what's going on with the company together. Real world application. Everybody's holding themselves accountable because ain't nobody's going to get behind when you got a coworker that's still going for the same certification. You got a structured plan out there. So that if you are a new leader, this is a good way to level set and to invest in your team. And everybody knows that when you feel like you're invested in, you'll put more into what you do. It's really interesting, Sandy, that we give these advice for departments outside of HR, but a very, very not as often as it should are we self-reflective of this and saying that, hey, we're employees too, we're a team too, we require development too, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
Then the next is intercultural. How do you determine that? And IDI is a good way to be able to determine and increase your intercultural competency. We are IDI certified, so we can help you with assessing that. This is validated and all the things. And as I was talking to Sandy about this, as DEI has become, weaponized and all those things, you have to change your language, but there's still ways to be able to get to the same end result. So if you're interested in that for you or your team, go ahead and use a QR code for that. And then last but not least, driving change. HRCI and SHRM is the only certification out there, like Sandy said. There's the PMSCP. Say it fast, don't offend anybody. Project Management Skills Certified Professional. It's leading change through people that don't report to you. And by default, all HR people are that. And the benefit here is that the certification exam is included and you get 44 credit hours towards your existing PMI, HRCI, SHRM, and ATD credentials. This is the hidden gem, y'all. So if that applies, we got a class form and cohort form now. Go ahead and scan it. What I would love for Sandy to do is, because when I tell you her books and everything have been a part, I recommend this as supplement to my cohorts. So if they need extra questions and context around each one, that they're there. And there's some new ones that you just finished, right, Sandy?
Yeah, last year was a busy year because the exams got updated. HRCI's exams got updated, and we rolled out 2 brand new books. So the PHR, the PHRI, which is the international, and the SPHR and the SPHRI, which is the senior international, they now share one exam content outline. And so the new study guides now actually are good for those 4 exams, all 4 of them together. So they're pretty robust. And then the other new book is the APHR, which is the Associate Professional in Human Resource. That exam is strictly knowledge-based. And so that book came out in April. And then we also put out a big book of exam practice questions, which I know it's such a creative title. But that book, I wrote more than 1,000 practice questions for both HRCI and SHRM exams. So that big book of exam practice questions has questions for 6 exams in it. So
it's really truly a big book.
It is a big book, and that one took me almost a year to write. That one was a little bit of a beast. So no, those are self-study options, if or supplemental as you're using them, because the key with these tests is to practice, practice, practice. So when you get to exam day, you're not taken aback just by the style of the question.
Look, and she didn't say it, but her website is here, as well as her email address, if you want to be able to reach out. And then also, you know, HR Certified here is here as well, right? If you would like to join our next HR certification cohort, it is agnostic, HRCI or SHRM, our next PM-SCP cohort that's coming up. And then for those of you who may have not passed your first attempt, or you need that little push to move forward in your investment, we have a boot camp coming up in June. So if you want information on any of that, and I think I saw some comments in there as well as, hey, I just need to talk. I need to talk this through, right? Because you may not have been able to get to the last part. Please set up some time for us to be able to speak. I love this one that just came in. I think we can end off on this one. I like this one from Eric. I've heard passion numerous times, and you both exude a tremendous amount of enthusiasm as you speak about HR. What are your passions for doing this work, and how do you stay excited looking forward? Oh, wow. I love that.
Anthony, you want to start? Yeah, kick us off.
Well, I love what I do. I love what I do, and I love its impact. What we do is important work. And there I go again. I don't know why I keep doing this. Hold on one second here. And I know its impact. I believe that, let me go back to my roots. I originally wanted to be an elementary school teacher, and it didn't work out. And when to see when the light comes on in transferring knowledge and skills to someone else, that has kind of like a domino effect towards whoever they interact, that is a driver for me. And we're culture builders. We set the example for that in these environments. So and I knew I had a gift with it, because I just move. You give me a situation, and I come across like I've been in it a million times before, but in the inside, I'm dying and I'm taking a risk, and I hope that everything turns out just fine. Okay. But it's that type of aspect. And I love how dynamic this profession is. It's constantly evolving, it's constantly growing. And we're moving along with the pace of change. So I think that's it for me, and it's enabling the others and being effective and agile. I have a gift for that, for being a teacher and a coach and a facilitator, and I just lean into it. What about you, Sandy?
Yeah, no, again, very well said, Anthony. And there's a quote that comes to mind by Simon Sinek, and he says 100% of employees are people, 100% of your customers are people. If you don't know people, you don't know business. And that is just so powerful for me as a practitioner, because I genuinely care about people and I want to see them succeed. And I have the heart of an educator. At the end of the day, it's about not only teaching, but learning myself. And so when we put ourselves in the HR environment with a heart of curiosity, then we can kind of marry people with business. And that's what HR is. That's what IO psychology is. It's people with business. And so having that passion for people first will really drive the impact that we're able to have. And certification is the vehicle. Certification is kind of that conduit that can help you understand, once again, what HR is and what it is not. And if it's not in my lane, I don't want to be part of it. Leave that to the accounting people. Leave that to, right, whoever that happens to be. But HR, we are positioned to have significant impact when we know what we're doing. Yeah. And that's really why I'm so passionate about certification.
Yeah, and we're in a team, and that's that cultivates those gifts, right?
Yeah, and that was a great question. I'm glad we were able to end on that.
Yeah, well, this is what I challenge all of you to do, is to first rock the brand. We have a really bad rep out here, especially for our Gen Z, right? You go TikTok, you can find it. We do a lot of great work, but we don't rock it, right? We're like when you volunteer, do they know that you're in HR? When you're at that
Right.
at that event, or you're doing something, or to be able to recognize each other, because we're so behind the scenes, right? We need to be able to say that we're humans, we do great stuff too. And then the last is to take care of yourselves. Take care of yourself. There's not a way that you're going to be able to take care of somebody else if you don't take care of yourself first. Sandy, thank you so much for coming on the platform. I know we're just a couple minutes over, but we
Thanks,
had a little
Anthony.
bit of late
We
start.
started late.
Yeah, we started late. So that, please give us grace as it relates to that. And I am opening up that this event that's on LinkedIn, those comments are perpetual, meaning that we are committed to go back and looking at the comments, following up with people who have said something. And for those of you who have said something, you might be in a little treat to get a little, get a surprise from Sandy or I or both. Have a great afternoon, and we hope that this has set the stage for you to make a decision on an investment on whether or not to pursue HR certification, which one to pursue, and really how to show up, and know that it's more than about the letters. It's about everything else that comes with it, that's bundled in with your gifts. All right. Have a good one, everybody, and see you
Thanks,
next
everybody.
time. Oh no, and Sandy, you are coming back. We're going to talk about a new nuance. We're going to talk to the people and see what they want, and we're going to dive in because we talk about a lot. We can really have one for one of these topics.
We'll dial in.
That's right. Lean in. All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.